Good morning, everybody. Jack Leeson with StartupTrading.com. It is November 27th here, 9:10 in the morning. And the title of the video is Trading Test the Weekly Discount. So, what I mean by the weekly discount is basically just anything below the halfway back long for the week. And that's marked up by this green box here. So, I wouldn't even look for any long trades until we get down into that level. And I'm using the overnight lows as well from Tuesday. If you guys remember, yesterday we had Monday's low to what was the high of Tuesday, regular trading hours session only trade, and there was also a more aggressive traditional yesterday in morning's trade plan. We held it, bounced multiple times, and then coming out of lunch, we basically swept that low, traded just the next support level, and then rallied into close. And we've continued to fail from really the top side of this range, 78% of this range. And so what my anticipation is whether we get all the way down to 20,886 or I mean all the way down to 20,835, that would kind of be where I would expect the bottom range. And of course you have that PCE number, which could be a big mover. But if we do not break lower and we can start getting some acceptance above 2100, I do think there's a possibility we get up into that low volume end of low volume holiday bid. That is definitely on the table, and what we would be using for targets for that is Monday's low to the Tuesday's high, and that basically takes us right up to 2180s. So if we do not get a sweep down to 86 and instead bid off these overnight lows, that's where I would expect us to go. But my anticipation here, based on really just yesterday's price action, was choppy to down outside of the close, and then choppy down here in the overnight session with resistance around 20,980s is to retest these lower levels, and to me those are the good trade locations for a potential long here today in the NQ. Moving on to the S&P 500, let me get rid of the extended session. The S&P 500 is much more bullish than the than the NASDAQ. So if you are anticipating, higher moves, gravitate right to the ES. This is going to be your more technical market coming out of what was Monday's low with that first traditional rally, and then it wasn't until the ES traded its equivalent setup to the NASDAQ on Tuesday around 10:30 that we actually found a low for the morning. We then completed those moves coming out of lunch, took quite a bit, and then we set up immediately in what was the next technical halfway back long, and those completed targets into the close. So nothing but completions here for the S&P, acting stronger than the NASDAQ. And then you can even be as aggressive and just draw this next traditional 60.33, 2 points below where we're currently trading. If we bid that, that's a really good sign for longs. Otherwise, if we do get just a deeper pullback here in the ES and can trade back to once again that weekly discount, which is basically the prior day's low, if we can get down to that prior day's low, you're also going to be looking at the halfway back long for the week, an ideal trading entry for me. Otherwise, this is probably going to be a high and tight rally here, and larger time frame targets are going to be up at 60, 67. And then moving on to oil and gold. Gold and oil both had halfway backs in opposing directions yesterday. They initially, into the open, we had traditional longs. The gold market completed. We rotated all the way back down into the full halfway back at 9:30. And then the the oil had a move too, and then basically they both reversed. Anyway, we've completed this gold move. The next setup, very valid, 26.62 half. The one and only trade setup I'm looking for here today in GC would be that next traditional, and clean traditional right up to targets. That's going to be your next setup. Moving on to oil, yesterday there was also long setups going into the open, which I was paying attention to. We completed those, ran into the full short, and then had a change of direction, and that change of direction is still in play. Everything below the 50% retracement short from the prior day, I'm not going to anticipate any longs here, and I think we could continue to run basically to the bottom of this range. If you go to the daily chart, we just continue to move down to 68s before finding supports, and I have this trend line driven here, but we just continue to move down below 68 to 67 before finding a couple bucks to the upside. So I will still lean short here in CL. Although your entry was 69.20s into the last trade, once we complete those moves, you can look up for that next measured move. But gold, on the other hand, does have a pretty decent long setup, and that's going to be all I have here this morning. I'll share these levels with you guys in the room, and then jump on Squawk in the Discord for the screen share for the day. Everybody trade safe, have a great day, and I'll talk to you there. Take care.